The millionaire CEO rejected 8 models, but is fascinated by a single mother delivery girl. Before starting the story, leave a comment. Which city are you watching from? And at the end, don't forget to rate the story from 0 to 10. Enjoy the story, everyone. Just a minute, just a minute. Samantha shouted as she entered the luxurious lobby of the Skyview Tower, breathless, carrying her 4-year-old daughter in her arms and a cooler bag of takeout in her left hand. The doorman didn't even have time to stop her. She walked right past, panting, trying to fix her hair and her delivery company cap as she pressed the elevator button. Julie, clinging to her mother's chest, commented with the cruel logic of children. "Mommy, you smell like soy sauce and sweat." Samantha smiled. "And you smell like the strawberry candy you snuck out of reception. Smart girl." On the 32nd floor, the apartment door opened before she could even knock. The client, an elegant blonde woman with a look of disgust on the tip of her perfectly arched eyebrow, glanced at her watch. 1 minute late. Samantha's eyes widened, sweating. "Miss, seriously? 1 minute? It's past the deadline. I don't want any more." The woman crossed her arms. "I can't stand people who don't meet deadlines." "Oh, sure, because your stomach has a built-in Swiss timer, right?" Samantha countered sarcastically. "Maybe I should have left my daughter alone on the street, run breathlessly, and run the red light to deliver your golden sushi." "Poor people always have an excuse, right?" the woman retorted disdainfully. At that moment, Julie, still clinging to her mother's body, lifted her little face and said loudly, "Mom, this girl looks like a wicked witch from a cartoon." Samantha froze. The woman's eyes widened, and on the other side, leaning against the wall near the elevator, a tall man in a dark gray suit with a sharp gaze held back a laugh. Nathaniel Hayes, CEO of Hayes Enterprises, was just waiting for the elevator, but ended up getting an unexpected spectacle. He coughed discreetly, as if asking permission to intervene. "Excuse me." His voice was calm, cool, and elegant. "If you really don't want the order, I'll take it. I'm starving." The customer opened her mouth to protest, but Nathaniel was already holding out the black card with an impatient gesture. "Can you tell me the price, miss?" "Samantha." She handed over the bag, still in shock, glancing sideways at Julie, who whispered, "He looks like a dapper penguin." "I heard," Nathaniel said, looking at the girl with a slight raise of his eyebrow. Then he looked at Samantha. "It seems you two have a knack for making an impact." Samantha gave an awkward smile. "And you look like you've never wasted a second of your life." "Almost never," he replied, already typing the password on the machine's display. As she finished the transaction, Nathaniel noticed the deep circles under Samantha's eyes, the ripped jacket at the shoulder, and the way Julie snuggled into her chest, confident that she was safe there, even with the world at war outside. "It was only a minute," Samantha murmured, still indignant. "Just a minute." "1 minute can change everything," Nathaniel said, accepting the bag and turning toward the elevator. "And a CEO can order delivery like any mortal?" she teased. "Especially when the dinner event I'm supposed to be at is unbearable." Julie, still hugging her mother, gave a thumbs up. "Good choice, dapper penguin." Nathaniel shook his head, but before he entered the elevator, something unexpected happened. He was about to step into the elevator when he heard a strange noise behind him. It was a dry, forced cough that cut through the air like an alarm. Julie had begun coughing uncontrollably, clinging to her mother's chest. What began as an innocent throat clearing quickly turned into something more serious. The girl gasped for air, but it seemed her lungs refused to cooperate. "Julie? Julie, my love, what's happening?" Samantha panicked, holding her daughter's little face in her hands. "Breathe with me, breathe slowly." But Julie couldn't. Her lips began to turn slightly blue, and she made a high-pitched, desperate gasp for air. Her tiny hands clung to her mother's jacket like anchors. "Oh my God, Julie." Samantha looked desperately, but the child was getting more and more breathless. "Please, please, don't do this to me." The customer who had refused the delivery was still at the door, but she took a few steps back, clearly uncomfortable with the situation. Nathaniel, who already had 1 foot inside the elevator, stopped completely. "Does she have asthma?" he asked, dropping the cooler bag on the floor and approaching. "No, I don't know. She's never had this before." Samantha was shaking, holding Julie in her arms as the girl struggled to breathe. "Julie, my ain't stay with me, okay?" Nathaniel watched the scene for 2 seconds that felt like an eternity. The cold rationality that always guided him in business took over. He pulled out his cell phone and dialed quickly. "This is Nathaniel Hayes." I need an ambulance at Skyview Tower, apartment 3204. Child in severe respiratory distress. Now. Samantha looked at him with tears in her eyes. She's going to be okay, right? Please tell me she's going to be okay. Let's take her to the hospital now, Nathaniel said, already taking the car keys out of his pocket. My car is in the garage. It's faster than waiting for the ambulance. But I don't know you. Samantha hesitated for a second, even with Julie panting in her arms. And I don't know you, Nathaniel replied, pressing the elevator button harder. But your daughter needs help. Now. Julie made an even higher-pitched sound, and that was enough for Samantha to make her decision. She stepped into the elevator with Nathaniel, holding her daughter tightly, whispering comforting words in her ear. Everything will be okay, my love. Mommy's here. This elegant penguin will help us, okay? During the descent, Nathaniel called again, this time the hospital. This is Nathaniel Hayes. I'm taking a child with a respiratory crisis to Lenox Hill Hospital. I want the best pediatric pulmonologist available, now, and I want an emergency room prepared. Samantha stared at him, surprised by the authority in his voice. It was clear that Nathaniel Hayes was not just any man in a suit. In the garage, he opened the door of a shiny black BMW. Samantha climbed into the back seat with Julie, who was a little calmer but still breathing heavily. Hang in there, little warrior, Nathaniel said, glancing in the rearview mirror as he drove precisely through the streets of Manhattan. You'll be fine soon. She doesn't like hospitals, Samantha murmured, stroking her daughter's hair. Nobody likes it, Nathaniel replied, stopping at a red light, but sometimes it's the only place we can find the answers. 15 minutes later, they arrived at the hospital. Nathaniel stopped the car at the emergency room entrance, and a medical team immediately appeared with a small stretcher. Dr. Martinez, pediatric pulmonologist, said a woman in a white coat, carefully picking Julie up. We'll take good care of her. Samantha tried to accompany the medical team, but was stopped at the reception. Ma'am, I need some information first, said the attendant, a middle-aged woman with glasses perched on the bridge of her nose. Please, my daughter is in there, Samantha begged. I understand, but these are mandatory procedures. Child's name? Julie Parker. Health insurance? Samantha swallowed hard. No, we don't have health insurance. Credit card as payment guarantee? I can't pay now, but I can pay in installments. I can work extra. I can. The attendant sighed. Ma'am, without some guarantee of payment, I can't authorize more advanced procedures. Samantha felt her world collapse. Please, she's just a child. I'll pay, I swear I will, but don't let her suffer because of money. Nathaniel, who had parked his car and entered the hospital, overheard the conversation. He approached the counter with firm steps. All costs are on me, he said, placing the black card on the counter. I want the best treatments available, the best doctors, and I want them to do everything necessary. The attendant looked at the card, then at Nathaniel. Mr. Hayes? Sure, no problem. I'll authorize all procedures immediately. Samantha's mouth dropped open. But why are you doing this? Nathaniel avoided her gaze, because it's the right thing to do. 2 hours later, Dr. Martinez walked out of the emergency room with a reassuring smile. Julie is fine, he announced. It was a bronchospasm, probably triggered by an allergy to something she inhaled. We gave her bronchodilators and she's breathing normally now. It's common in children, and with the right medication it shouldn't happen again. Samantha burst into tears of relief. Can I see her? Of course. She's asking for Mommy and Uncle Penguin. The doctor smiled. When Samantha entered the room, Julie was sitting on the bed, playing with a teddy bear someone had given her. Mommy, the little girl cried, stretching out her little arms. My love. Samantha hugged her tightly. How are you feeling? Much better. The doctor said I'm very brave, Julie smiled. And where's Uncle Penguin? He promised he'd visit me. Samantha looked around, but Nathaniel was gone. At the front desk, the attendant handed over a folder of papers. All charges were paid by Mr. Hayes. He left this card for you. Samantha picked up a sleek business card. Nathaniel Hayes, CEO, Hayes Enterprises. On the back was a handwritten note, Hope Julie gets well, NH. Where did he go? Samantha asked. He left about 20 minutes ago. He said he had an urgent meeting. Samantha left the hospital with a sleeping Julie in her arms and the card clutched in her free hand. They took a taxi home, but the whole ride she couldn't stop thinking about the man who had saved her daughter without asking for anything in return. The next morning, after dropping Julie off at daycare, Samantha went straight to the address on her business card. The Hayes Enterprises building was imposing, all glass and steel, in the heart of the financial district. At the front desk, she explained that she needed to speak with Nathaniel Hayes. The receptionist, an elegant young woman, looked her up and down, from her worn flats to her delivery uniform, and smiled with forced politeness. "Mr. Hayes is in a meeting. Can I help you with anything?" "It's personal," Samantha insisted. After 20 minutes of waiting, Nathaniel and his father Henry appeared in the elevator, adjusting his tie. When he saw Samantha, he stopped for a second, surprised. "Samantha? How is Julie?" "She's fine, thanks to you," Samantha said, standing up. "Listen, I came here to talk about the money." "What money?" Nathaniel frowned. "The money you spent on the hospital. I'll give you every penny back, you can be sure of that. It might take a while, but I'll pay it back." Nathaniel shook his head. "No need." "Yes, it is," Samantha insisted, pulling a crumpled notebook from her bag. "How much was it? 2,000? 3,000? I'll write it down and pay it back little by little." "Forget it," Nathaniel said, already heading back to the elevator. "Nathaniel Hayes," she shouted, causing some people at the reception desk to turn around. "I'm not a charity worker. I work, I make ends meet, and I pay my bills." He stopped and turned around, his expression a mixture of surprise and admiration. "How much do you earn per month?" he asked. Henry just watched the scene in amazement. Samantha hesitated. "That's beside the point. Yes, you will. If you really want to pay, I need to know how long it will take you to save up $5,300. Samantha's eyes widened. 5,000 and... oh my God. "Now, do you understand why I said to forget it?" "No." She stomped her foot. 5,000 or 50,000, it doesn't matter. I'll pay it. You can write my name down on your debtor's list, but I'll pay every penny, Mr. Hayes. Nathaniel studied her for a long moment. There was something about Samantha Parker that deeply intrigued him. Pride, determination, an almost irritating stubbornness, and an honesty he rarely saw in his business world. "Okay," he said finally. "You pay, but in your own time, in your own way." "Thank you," Samantha sighed in relief. "You won't regret it." "I'm sure not," Nathaniel murmured, stepping into the elevator with a barely perceptible smile on his lips. 3 days later, Nathaniel was in his 45th floor office, trying to concentrate on quarterly reports, when the door opened unceremoniously. Henry Hayes stormed in, dapper and elegant, carrying a stack of gossip magazines and a brown leather briefcase. "Good morning, son," Henry said, tossing the magazines onto the polished mahogany table. "We need to talk." Nathaniel sighed, recognizing the tone. Whenever his father started a conversation with, "We need to talk," it meant Henry had hatched some plan that Nathaniel definitely wouldn't like. "Dad, I'm busy. The merger with Morrison Corp needs my full attention. Morrison can wait." Henry sat in the chair facing the desk, crossing his legs with calculated elegance. "Your personal life can't wait." Nathaniel looked up from his papers, already anticipating where this conversation was going. "Let's not start that again." "Of course we will." Henry opened the first magazine, a New York gossip magazine. "Check out this article, Manhattan's Most Eligible Bachelors. Your name is right there in third place." "What an honor," Nathaniel muttered sarcastically. "The problem, my dear son, is that you've been on this list for 5 years running." Henry turned the pages with impatient fingers. "That's not good for our corporate image. Investors like stability, family men, someone who demonstrates responsibility and maturity." "I run a multi-million-dollar company at 32, Dad. I think I've demonstrated enough responsibility." Henry completely ignored the comment and opened the brown folder, pulling out a typed list on letterhead. "Here are the most suitable candidates for you. All from traditional families, all impeccably educated, all financially independent." Nathaniel picked up the list and quickly scanned it. Familiar names, faces he'd seen at social events for years, beautiful, elegant, perfect women, and completely dull. "Victoria Ashworth," Henry pointed to the first name. "You've dated her before. Excellent choice. Family owns luxury hotels, Harvard graduate, speaks 4 languages. And he has the personality of an iceberg," Nathaniel added. "Not to mention our breakup was complicated." "Details," Henry waved away. "Adult relationships sometimes need second chances. And look here, Madison Cooper, heiress to Cooper Industries. Gorgeous, intelligent, and you have a lot in common. Like the fact that we both prefer our phones to each other's company." Henry slammed his hand on the table in frustration. "Nathaniel, you're not taking this seriously. At 32, a man of your standing should be married, with children, building a family legacy, not living like a perpetual bachelor featured in gossip magazines. What if I don't want to marry any of these women? Then I'll choose for you, Henry said, with the coldness of a corporate ultimatum. I have a fundraiser next week. I'll invite 3 of these candidates. You choose one for a serious relationship, or I'll choose and arrange the engagement. Nathaniel dropped the list on the table and leaned back in his chair in disbelief. You can't be serious. I'm completely serious. The Hayes family's reputation cannot be tarnished by your resistance to commitment. This is business, son. Strategic marriages have always been part of the corporate world. What medieval world is this, Dad? It's 2025, not 1824. Henry stood, putting away the magazines and briefcase with precise movements. The world hasn't changed as much as you think. Power, influence, and stability still go hand in hand. And a married Hayes is worth much more on the market than a single Hayes. Nathaniel stared out the picture window, watching the frenetic activity of Manhattan below. Somewhere in that city, Samantha was probably delivering orders, carrying Julie in her arms, struggling to pay the bills. The difference between their 2 worlds was stark. What if I say I'd rather marry the local delivery girl? He said, without taking his eyes off the window. The sentence came out as a provocation, a desperate attempt to irritate his father and end the conversation. Henry paused in the doorway, turning slowly. Instead of the outburst of indignation Nathaniel expected, his father's face showed something far more dangerous. Genuine interest. Neighborhood delivery girl? Henry repeated, with calculating curiosity. Are you referring to someone specific? Nathaniel realized his mistake too late. It was a joke, Dad, a provocation. Interesting, Henry murmured, pulling a small notebook from his inside jacket pocket and making a note. Very interesting. Dad, stop. It was just a random comment. Of course it was. Henry smiled, but it wasn't a reassuring smile. It was the smile he wore when he closed especially lucrative deals. A delivery person? What a revolutionary concept. Henry Hayes, I'm serious. Don't turn a silly joke into one of your crazy projects. Crazy project? Henry feigned offense. Son, I'm just expanding the possibilities. Maybe it's time to think outside the box, as you young executives like to say. Nathaniel felt a chill run down his spine. He knew his father well enough to know when Henry was up to something, and in the last 32 years of his life, he had never seen anything good come of Henry Hayes's schemes. Dad, whatever you're thinking, please don't do it. Don't worry. Henry opened the door, pausing only to glance over his shoulder. The benefit is next Friday. Wear your best tuxedo, and who knows, maybe we'll have some surprises on the menu. The door closed with a soft click, leaving Nathaniel alone with a growing sense that he'd made a terrible mistake. He knew Henry too well to believe the reference to the neighborhood delivery girl would be forgotten. He picked up the phone and dialed his secretary. Sandra, I need you to find out everything about next Friday's charity event. Guest list, vendors, everything. Of course, Mr. Hayes. May I ask why you're concerned? Nathaniel looked at the list of candidates still on his desk, then at the note Henry had made in his notebook. I have a feeling my father is planning something that will go very wrong for everyone involved. Meanwhile, 3 floors above, Henry Hayes was in his private office, leafing through a phone book and smiling as if he had just discovered the solution to a very complex problem. Neighborhood delivery girl, he muttered to himself, picking up the phone. What a brilliant idea, Nathaniel. Absolutely brilliant. And with that, Henry began making some very specific calls, organizing what would undoubtedly be the most interesting event of the entire New York social season. The following Friday, Samantha Parker stood in front of the cracked bathroom mirror in her small apartment, trying to fix her hair for the 5th time. Her black catering uniform was borrowed and 2 sizes too big, but it was the best she could find at the last minute. Mommy, you look beautiful, Julie said, sitting on the bed, swinging her legs as she ate breakfast cereal. Thank you, love. Mom's just a little nervous. Samantha adjusted her bow tie for the 10th time. It's a very fancy event. Very important people. More important than you? Her daughter's innocent question made Samantha smile. Of course not, princess. No one is more important than the 2 of us. An hour later, Samantha was in the kitchen of the Plaza Hotel's grand ballroom, receiving instructions from the supervisor, a serious woman named Margaret. This is a high society fundraiser, Margaret explained, adjusting Samantha's apron. Lots of millionaires, some celebrities, people who can make or break a catering company's reputation with one ill-timed comment. So, smile, be polite, and for God's sake, don't drop anything. Samantha nodded, her stomach churning. She desperately needed the extra money. Julie needed new allergy medication, and the rent was late. You'll serve the drinks during the cocktail hour, Margaret continued. Champagne, wine, and some non-alcoholic beverages. Keep the tray balanced and avoid engaging in long conversations with the guests. The main ballroom was stunning. Crystal chandeliers, enormous white flowers, tables decorated like movie sets. Samantha had never seen so much luxury in one place. Guests began arriving. Women in designer gowns, men in perfectly tailored tuxedos, jewelry that probably cost more than her annual salary. First tray, Margaret said, handing over a silver tray with champagne flutes. Remember, smile and be invisible. Samantha took a deep breath and entered the room. The first few minutes were uneventful. She served drinks, received polite thanks, and managed to maintain her balance. She was beginning to feel confident when she spotted a familiar figure across the room. Henry Hayes was talking to a group of people, gesturing animatedly. And next to him, "Nathaniel?" Samantha murmured, almost dropping the tray. He was impeccably dressed in a black tuxedo, his hair perfectly combed, chatting with a stunning blonde woman in a red dress. For a moment, Samantha completely forgot where she was and what she was doing. All she could think about was how different he looked in that setting. No longer the man who had rushed Julie to the hospital, but the millionaire CEO he truly was. "Excuse me, can you serve me?" A sharp voice caught his attention. Samantha turned to see an older woman, covered in diamonds, looking at her impatiently. Of course. Samantha quickly approached, holding out the tray. Finally, you guys at work are getting slower and slower. The woman took a glass without even looking at Samantha. "Sorry, ma'am," Samantha murmured, trying to maintain a professional smile. She was walking away when she heard someone call her name. "Samantha? Samantha Parker?" She turned to see Nathaniel approaching, a look of genuine surprise on his face. The blonde woman was right behind him, clearly curious. "Nathaniel," Samantha smiled, but immediately remembered where she was. Good evening, sir." "What are you doing here?" he asked, completely ignoring the forced formality. "Extra work," she explained, lifting the tray. "Julie needs new meds, and, well, you know how it is." The blonde woman stepped closer, examining Samantha from head to toe with a calculating gaze. "Nathaniel, who is your friend?" The question was loaded with insinuation. "Victoria, this is Samantha Parker." Nathaniel introduced himself, clearly uncomfortable. "Samantha, Victoria Lane." "Ah, so you're the delivery girl." Victoria smiled, but it wasn't a friendly smile. "Nathaniel told me about the incident at the hospital." "How dramatic." Samantha felt her cheeks heat up. "It was a medical emergency, not a drama." "Of course," Victoria nodded condescendingly. "It must have been very convenient to have someone rich around at just the right time." The insinuation was clear, and Samantha felt anger rise in her chest. But before she could respond, Nathaniel intervened. "Victoria, that was unnecessary. Just looking at the facts." Victoria shrugged. Samantha took a deep breath, trying to maintain her professional composure. "Excuse me, I need to continue serving." She turned quickly to walk away, but the combination of nervousness, anger, and the polished marble floor conspired against her. Her foot slipped, and she completely lost her balance. The tray flew through the air in slow motion, and 12 glasses of champagne went straight toward Nathaniel Hayes. The golden liquid soaked his impeccable white shirt, dripped from his expensive tuxedo, and formed a puddle at his feet. The entire room stopped. Conversation ceased. All eyes turned to the scene. "Oh my God!" Samantha screamed, running to Nathaniel. I'm so sorry." Nathaniel stood there, completely soaked, blinking slowly as drops of champagne dripped from his hair. "That's Dom Perignon champagne," Victoria said, horrified. "Each bottle costs $800. "I'll pay," Samantha said desperately, trying to dry Nathaniel's shirt with the napkins from the tray. "I work extra, I sell something, but I'll pay." "Samantha, stop." Nathaniel held her hands, which were shaking as she tried to clean up the mess. "I'm fine." "You're not okay. You're soaked in expensive champagne and now everyone's staring and I'm going to get fired and—" "Breathe," Nathaniel said calmly. "It was an accident." "It's the floor's fault," Samantha declared, pointing to the polished marble. "Who makes floors so slippery? They're a public hazard." "The floor has been like this for 40 years, said someone in the audience. "Then it's been dangerous for 40 years. Samantha retorted. There should be a warning sign. Caution, waitress killing floor. Some guests chuckled. Victoria snorted in indignation. This is a disaster, Victoria muttered. Nathaniel, you need to change immediately. He needs a towel first, Samantha said. That's still trying to help. And maybe a hairdryer, and a washing machine, and a time machine to go back 5 minutes. Nathaniel began to laugh, first softly, then louder, until he was genuinely laughing. Are you suggesting I use a time machine because of champagne? Well, if you can afford $800 champagne, maybe you can afford a time machine too, Samantha said, finally managing a smile. Impeccable logic, Nathaniel agreed, still laughing. Across the room, Henry Hayes watched the scene with a satisfied smile. He discreetly approached a social photographer covering the event. Make sure that photo appears in Monday's Society column, Henry muttered. CEO drenched by mysterious waitress. It'll make a juicy headline. The photographer waved and took a few discreet shots. Margaret, the supervisor, came running up, red with embarrassment. Mr. Hayes, I'm terribly sorry. We're firing this employee immediately, and that won't be necessary, Henry interrupted, still smiling. Accidents happen. Actually, it was quite refreshing. Meanwhile, Samantha finally managed to stop apologizing and looked around, realizing that half of New York's high society was watching the spectacle. I should disappear now, he muttered to Nathaniel. Probably, he agreed. But I admit that was the most interesting part of the evening. At least when I mess things up, I mess them up with style. Samantha sighed. Definitely in style, Nathaniel smiled. And Samantha, about the hospital debt, consider it paid off. What? No. I said I would pay, and I think you've paid enough. He gestured to his soaked clothes. We're even. And with that, Nathaniel walked away to change, leaving Samantha in the middle of the room, still holding the empty tray and realizing that her life had just gotten infinitely more complicated. 20 minutes after the champagne incident, Samantha was in the hotel kitchen trying to compose herself. Margaret had been surprisingly understanding, especially after Henry Hayes personally assured her there would be no consequences. Still, Samantha felt mortified. I can't believe I soaked the man who saved my daughter, she muttered to herself, washing her hands in the kitchen sink. Julie's gonna laugh at me for a whole week. Actually, I think it was quite memorable. Samantha turned quickly and found Henry Hayes standing in the kitchen doorway, impeccably dressed in his tuxedo, with a smile that didn't reach his eyes. Mr. Hayes, she straightened immediately. I'm sorry about what happened. Your son? I didn't mean to. Relax, my dear, Henry waved, stepping closer. You can call me Henry, and as for the incident, it was exactly what I expected. Samantha frowned. Did you expect that? Have a seat. Henry gestured to a chair next to the small table where the employees took their breaks. I need to talk to you. Coffee? Well, Samantha hesitated but eventually sat down. Okay. Henry poured 2 cups of coffee from the coffee maker and sat in the chair opposite. For a moment, he studied her with the intensity of someone considering an investment. I remember you, he said finally. A few days ago at the Hayes Enterprises reception desk, fighting with my son about paying a hospital bill. Samantha blushed. I wasn't fighting. I was insisting. Insisting on paying $5,300 as a delivery woman's salary. Henry smiled. Admirable. Stubborn, but admirable. I always pay my debts, Samantha said, lifting her chin proudly. I know. That's why I'm here. Henry sipped his coffee, apparently savoring the suspense. Samantha began to feel like a mouse being watched by a very intelligent cat. Mr. Henry, I don't understand. Why are you talking to me? Because I have a proposal for you. A proposal that can solve all your financial problems. Samantha nearly spat out her coffee. What kind of proposal? Henry leaned forward, his expression as if he were about to close the deal of the century. I want you to pretend to be my son's girlfriend. The silence that followed was deafening. Samantha blinked several times, making sure she'd heard correctly. Sorry, I think I misunderstood. Did you say fake girlfriend? At public events, social dinners, strategic appearances, Henry explained as if he were discussing stock market shares. Nothing too complicated. Just convincing New York society that my son has finally found someone special. Samantha put the cup down so hard that the coffee spilled. Are you crazy? I'm being practical, Henry corrected. Nathaniel needs to get married. I need a daughter-in-law who will generate media interest and change his image as a confirmed bachelor. You need money. It's a win-win situation. I can't pretend to date your son, Samantha stammered. First, because it's a lie. Second, because he looks like a penguin in a sloppy suit. Third, because you have principles, Henry added. That's exactly why you're perfect. Samantha shook her head vigorously. No. That's crazy. You need to find someone else. An actress, maybe. Someone who can fake it. The actresses I know are very obvious, Henry said, pulling an envelope from his inside jacket pocket. You, on the other hand, are authentic. Real. Exactly what Nathaniel needs to break his image as a cold, calculating man. He's not cold, Samantha said without thinking. I mean, he saved Julie. He paid her medical bills. He was kind. See? You already see his human side. Henry smiled, satisfied. That's exactly what I need the audience to see. Henry placed the envelope on the table. Julie's tuition paid for the next 5 years. Private school, the best in the area, plus $10,000 per public appearance. And a $50,000 bonus when the charade is no longer necessary. Samantha stared at the envelope as if it were a poisonous snake. $50,000? It's a reasonable amount for the service provided. But it's a lie, she protested. It's deceiving everyone. It's marketing, Henry corrected. And marketing is the art of presenting reality in the best possible way. Samantha took the envelope with trembling hands. The inside was a preliminary contract and a check with more zeros than she had ever seen combined. I can't accept this, he said, but his voice didn't sound very convincing. Think about Julie, Henry said softly. Private school means better opportunities, better teachers, a better future. It means you'll never have to worry about whether you can afford her medicine again. Samantha's hands trembled. 5 years of school fees, a lifetime's worth of food deliveries. What if Nathaniel doesn't agree? Leave Nathaniel to me, Henry said confidently. My son is stubborn, but he's not stupid. He'll understand that this is good for everyone. Dating your son, Samantha muttered, still trying to process the situation. Pretending to be in love with a penguin in a clunky suit who probably doesn't even know how to change a light bulb. He knows how to change light bulbs. A cold voice said from the kitchen doorway. Samantha and Henry turned at the same time. Nathaniel stood in the doorway, still wearing the spare shirt someone had borrowed, his hair still slightly damp from champagne, and an expression that was a mix of shock and indignation. Nathaniel! Henry stood up, smiling as if nothing had happened. I'm glad you're here. We were just... I heard it all, Nathaniel interrupted, striding into the kitchen. From the proposal to solve financial problems part to the penguin in a sloppy suit part. Samantha sank into her chair, embarrassed. Nathaniel, Dad, what the hell do you think you're doing? Nathaniel ignored Samantha and looked directly at Henry. I'm solving 2 problems at once, Henry replied calmly. You need a girlfriend. She needs money. Simple math. I don't need a fake girlfriend. Yes, she does, Henry insisted. And she needs that money. Look at her, Nathaniel. Really look. When was the last time you saw someone work so hard just to keep their daughter healthy? Nathaniel looked at Samantha, who was blushing with embarrassment, still holding the envelope. That's not fair to either of us, he said more softly. Life isn't fair, Henry retorted, but sometimes we can create arrangements that work for everyone. Samantha finally found her voice. I didn't say I accepted. But you'll accept, Henry said with absolute certainty, because you're a responsible mother, and this is the best opportunity Julie will ever have. The silence stretched for long seconds. Samantha stared at the envelope. Nathaniel stared at her, and Henry looked at them both with growing satisfaction. Verbal contract done, Henry announced suddenly, clapping his hands once. Samantha, you can start tomorrow. Dinner at Le Bernardin, 8 o'clock. Nathaniel will pick you up. Dad, you can't just... I can, and I just did, Henry interrupted. Samantha, I need your address for the driver. Samantha stammered, completely overwhelmed. 47th Street, apartment 3B, she said before she could stop herself. Perfect, Henry smiled triumphantly. Nathaniel, wear something smart casual. Samantha, there's a boutique on Madison Avenue that would love to help you choose something suitable. I'll pick up the bill. Wait a minute. Samantha stood up abruptly. But Henry was already leaving the kitchen, waving over his shoulder. See you tomorrow, kids. It'll be the start of something wonderful. And with that, he disappeared, leaving Nathaniel and Samantha alone in the kitchen, looking at each other with expressions of utter shock. I think your father just manipulated us, Samantha said finally. My father manipulates everything, Nathaniel sighed. The question is, are you really going to do it? Samantha looked at the envelope in her hands, thought about Julie, thought about private school, thought about never having to worry about money for medicine again. "I think so," he whispered. "God help me, but I think so." The following Saturday at 7:30 in the evening, Samantha stood in front of her bedroom mirror, adjusting for the 10th time the navy blue dress she'd picked out at the Madison Avenue boutique. The saleswoman had insisted the color brought out her eyes, but all Samantha could think was that the dress cost more than 3 months' rent. "Mommy, you look so pretty," Julie said from her bed, where she was coloring in a book. "You look like a real princess." "Thanks, love," Samantha smiled nervously. "Remember what Mom explained to you? I'm having dinner with Uncle Penguin for work." "And you're going to pretend to be a couple?" Julie asked with the curiosity typical of a 5-year-old. "Yeah, it's a really complicated adult thing," Samantha sighed. "But just pretend, okay? Like when you play house." "Okay. But you like him, right, Mom?" The question caught Samantha off guard. He's a good person, Julie. He helped us when you were sick." "Then maybe you don't have to pretend," Julie said with the simple wisdom of children. Before Samantha could respond, the doorbell rang. She looked out the window and saw a sleek black car parked in front of the building. "He's here," he murmured, feeling his stomach churn. 15 minutes later, Samantha sat in the leather seat of Nathaniel's BMW, trying not to look as nervous as she felt. He was impeccably dressed in a dark gray suit, driving with the same precision he handled everything else in life. "Are you okay?" he asked, glancing at her. "You look tense." "I'm fine," Samantha lied, "just trying to remember which fork to use for each dish. Or is it a spoon? Do you even have a spoon at a fancy dinner?" Nathaniel couldn't hide a smile. "Relax, it's just dinner." "Just dinner," she repeated. "With people who probably spend on one meal what I make in a month. No pressure at all." "Samantha, you doused these same people with champagne a few days ago, and they laughed. I think you'll do just fine." Le Bernardin was even more intimidating than Samantha had imagined. The restaurant exuded understated elegance, with soft lighting, minimalist decor, and a reverent silence that only very expensive establishments can maintain. The maitre welcomed them as if Nathaniel were royalty. "Mr. Hayes, it's a pleasure to have you with us again. Your table is ready." They were shown to a table near the window, where another couple was already waiting. James Morrison, Nathaniel's business partner, and his wife Catherine, an elegant woman in her 50s. "Nathaniel," James stood up to greet him. "And this must be the famous Samantha we've heard so much about." Samantha extended her hand, trying to smile naturally. "Nice to meet you." "The pleasure is ours," Catherine said, assessing Samantha from head to toe with an analytical gaze. "Henry told us that you two met in a rather unique way." "She doused me in champagne," Nathaniel said, pulling out Samantha's chair. "It was unforgettable." "How romantic," Catherine laughed. "Tell us, how did this romance begin?" Samantha felt panic rise in her throat. They hadn't agreed on a story. "Well, it was love at first sight," Nathaniel interjected softly. "Samantha won me over with her spontaneity. And Nathaniel won me over by being kind when I needed it most," Samantha added, grateful for the help. The waiter appeared with menus in French and English. Samantha looked at the options and felt her brain spinning. She couldn't even pronounce half the dishes. "What do you recommend?" Catherine asked. "The lobster is exceptional," James suggested. "Lobster?" Samantha said, trying to sound enthusiastic. "I love lobster. It's like a polite scorpion that decided to live in the sea." Catherine blinked in surprise. James laughed. "Polite Scorpio?" Catherine repeated. "Well, think about the shape," Samantha gestured, getting into character. "They both have those big claws and long tails, and they look like they're going to attack you. But the lobster wears a natural tuxedo and frequents fancy restaurants." James laughed so hard he had to wipe his eyes. "I never thought of that. They really are elegant, distant relatives." Nathaniel watched, fascinated. Samantha was clearly out of her comfort zone, but there was something captivating about the way she turned nervousness into humor. When the cutlery was brought, Samantha looked at the collection of forks, knives, and spoons with a lost expression. "Why do we need 3 forks?" he whispered to Nathaniel. "I only have 2 hands." "Use it from the outside in," he whispered back. "What if I eat from the inside out? Will I get arrested?" "Probably deported," Nathaniel joked. Catherine, who had heard the whisper, smiled. "Samantha, have you ever traveled abroad?" Samantha swallowed. "Oh yes, I travel, a lot." "How wonderful. Where was your last trip?" "France," Samantha said quickly. Paris. I loved the Eiffel Tower. So tall. And what else did you visit? Samantha panicked completely. The Louvre, with the Mona Lisa, which, by the way, is much smaller than it looks on TV. And she has an expression like she just heard an inside joke. Intern? James asked, intrigued. You know, those jokes only she understands. Like Leonardo da Vinci whispered something funny while painting, and she looked like she was holding back a laugh. Catherine laughed. What an interesting interpretation. And what else did you do in Paris? I ate croissants, Samantha said, gaining confidence. Lots of croissants. Actually, I discovered that croissants are just bread that's been to the gym and gotten all muscular and golden. The whole table was laughing now. Nathaniel realized that, without realizing it, Samantha had completely won over James and Catherine with her unique way of seeing the world. And you, Nathaniel? Catherine asked. How has it been dating someone so refreshing? I never know what to expect, Neil answered honestly. Samantha sees things I would never notice, asks questions I would never ask. It's educational. And challenging? James suggested. Mostly challenging, Nathaniel agreed, looking at Samantha, who was trying to figure out how to hold the lobster fork. Over dessert, Catherine discussed an art exhibition, and Samantha, relaxed by the success of the conversation, invented a completely absurd analysis about modern art being the revenge of misunderstood brushes against arrogant canvases. You two make an interesting couple, Catherine said at the end of the evening. Complimentary. Thank you, Samantha smiled, feeling genuinely successful. When they left the restaurant, a light rain had begun to fall. Nathaniel opened a small umbrella that barely covered them both. Sorry, I didn't expect rain, he said, trying to protect Samantha. It's okay, I like rain, she replied, walking closer to him. They were almost to the car when Samantha stepped into a puddle deeper than expected. Her foot slipped, and she lost her balance completely. Nathaniel reacted instinctively, dropping the umbrella and reaching out to catch her. Samantha fell against his chest, her hands resting on his shoulders, their faces inches apart. For a moment that felt like an eternity, they stood like that, staring into each other's eyes, the rain falling softly around them. Samantha could feel Nathaniel's heart beating rapidly against her chest. He could see the raindrops on her eyelashes. I'm sorry, she whispered, without pulling away. It wasn't your fault, he replied, also whispering, without letting go of her. The rain picked up, drenching them both, but neither moved. There was something about the moment, the closeness, the vulnerability, the way his eyes looked at her as if seeing her for the first time, that made Samantha completely forget it was all just pretend. We should get in the car, she said finally. We should, he agreed, but still didn't let go of her. When they finally separated and got into the car, they were both wet and quiet, as if something important had happened, but neither of them knew exactly what. The night was successful, Nathaniel said, turning on the heater. Yes, Samantha agreed, looking out the window. Successful. But they both knew something had changed in those few seconds in the rain, and neither of them was prepared to admit what it was. The following Wednesday, Samantha was at the apartment trying to explain to Julie why Mom needed to go out again for work when the phone rang. Hello, he answered, balancing the phone between his shoulder and ear as he prepared Julie's dinner. Samantha, it's Nathaniel. Change of plans for tonight? What kind of change? She asked, feeling a twinge of anxiety. Benefit gala at the Museum of Modern Art. Black tie required. My father insisted it would be an excellent exposure opportunity. Samantha sighed. More important people who will judge me? Probably, Nathaniel admitted. But you did so well at Le Bernardin that I'm sure you'll survive another night. What inspiring confidence, she murmured. What time? 7:30. And Samantha? Wear the black dress the boutique set aside. It's going to be a more formal evening. 2 hours later, Samantha stood in the bathroom mirror, trying to master a red lipstick that seemed to have a life of its own. Her black dress was elegant without being flashy, and she had managed to tame her hair into a bun that looked almost professional. Mommy looks beautiful, Julie declared from the bathroom doorway. But why are you nervous again? Because Mommy is still learning to pretend she belongs in the world of elegant penguins, Samantha explained, applying lipstick for the third time. You don't have to pretend, Julie said seriously. You're the best mom in the world. That's more important than anything. Samantha bent down and hugged her daughter. When did you become so wise, little one? I learned from you, Julie smiled. The Museum of Modern Art was transformed into a movie set. Golden lights, exotic flowers, and tables decorated with crystals that reflected like stars. The guests looked like they'd stepped out of a fashion magazine, all perfectly dressed and speaking in low, polite tones. Nathaniel met her at the entrance, impeccably dressed in a black tuxedo. "You look beautiful," he said, offering his arm. "Thank you," Samantha smiled, trying to ignore how her heart raced at the compliment. "You also look, well, you always look elegant." They walked through the main hall, where Nathaniel greeted acquaintances and introduced Samantha as his girlfriend. She was just beginning to feel more comfortable when a familiar voice cut through the air. "Nathaniel Hayes. What a wonderful surprise." They turned to see Victoria Lane approaching like a hurricane in red silk. Her dress was a work of art in itself, perfectly cut, paired with jewelry that probably cost more than a car. She looked absolutely stunning, and she knew it. "Victoria," Nathaniel said, his voice growing noticeably colder. "I didn't expect to see you here." "Oh dear, you know I never miss a good charity." Victoria smiled, but her eyes were fixed on Samantha like a predator sizing up prey. "And this must be your new friend." "Samantha Parker." Samantha held out her hand, trying to maintain the confident posture she had learned. Victoria shook her hand with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "Victoria Lane. What an interesting dress. Very affordable." The comment was disguised as a compliment, but the intention was clear. Samantha felt her cheeks heat up, but she kept her smile. "Thank you. I chose something that wouldn't draw too much attention. I don't like being vulgar." Victoria blinked, catching the subtle hint. "Of course. And tell me, Samantha, what do you do for a living? Besides dating, obviously." "I work in logistics and deliveries," Samantha answered honestly. "It's honest work. I help people get what they need." "How noble," Victoria said with evident condescension. "It must be challenging for someone of your background to adapt to this environment." Samantha felt her irritation rise, but managed to keep her cool. "Actually, it's been fascinating. It's amazing how some people can be so elegant on the outside and so small on the inside." Some nearby guests seemed to pick up on the tension and approached discreetly, curious. "Oh, you're direct." Victoria laughed, but it didn't sound amused. "I imagine it's hard to understand the subtleties of our society when you don't grow up in it." "You're right," Samantha agreed happily. "In my world, people know how to use coarse salt to ward off bad energy, much more effective than complicated social codes." A nearby gentleman chuckled. A woman muttered something about, "How refreshing." Victoria realized she was losing her audience. "Coarse salt?" Victoria tried to sound amused. "How folkloric." "It's an old but reliable method," Samantha continued, as if giving a lesson. "You take the salt, make a circle around the negative energy, and voila, the person is contained within their own poison." Now several people were laughing openly. Nathaniel watched the scene with growing fascination, impressed by Samantha's ability to turn an attack into humorous self-defense. "Nathaniel," Victoria turned to him, trying to regain control of the situation. "Remember when we went to that charity auction in Boston? You bought that wonderful Monet painting." "I remember," Nathaniel replied dryly. "And the trip to the Hamptons on the Wellington's yacht?" Victoria continued, clearly trying to reminisce about better times. "Those were such sophisticated times." "They were," Nathaniel agreed, but he didn't sound nostalgic. Samantha watched the exchange and decided it was time to strike back. "What beautiful memories. Nathaniel told me you were very compatible. You both loved things expensive and empty." Victoria's mouth fell open in shock. "Excuse me?" "Oh, sorry if I worded it poorly," Samantha said with mock innocence. "I meant expensive things and, how do you say, no real emotional substance?" Nathaniel explained to me how difficult it was to find genuine connection in that kind of relationship. Nathaniel coughed, clearly trying to hide a smile. He definitely hadn't said it, but he was impressed by Samantha's creativity. "I don't think Nathaniel would say something like that," Victoria said, her voice slightly high-pitched. "Oh, but he did," Samantha insisted. "It was quite touching, actually. He talked about how empty he felt, like he was playing a role, pretending to be someone he wasn't. He said he never wanted to feel that way again." The surrounding crowd was now clearly paying attention. Victoria realized she had completely lost control of the situation. "Well," Victoria said, forcing a smile, "I guess different people have different perspectives on relationships." "Exactly," Samantha agreed warmly. "For example, I believe true love has nothing to do with how much money you have or what family you come from. It's about who's willing to hold your hand when you're scared, or who carries your daughter to the hospital without a second thought. Victoria's eyes glinted with mischief. Your daughter? Nathaniel didn't mention you have a daughter. Julie is 5 years old, Samantha said proudly. She's the most important person in my life. What a responsibility for a single man, Victoria commented, looking at Nathaniel. Some men aren't ready for ready-made families. The right men are, Nathaniel said firmly, surprising himself with the conviction in his voice. Julie is an incredible child. Any man would be lucky to be a part of her life. Victoria realized she had definitely lost. She tried a few more attacks, but Samantha deflected each one with humor and wit, always managing to make the audience laugh at Victoria's expense. Finally, Victoria gave up. Well, it was enlightening meeting you, Samantha. I'm sure we will learn a lot from each other. I'm sure so, Samantha smiled sweetly, especially about the difference between royal class and just money. Victoria stormed out in red, leaving a trail of embarrassment and some muted applause. Impressive, murmured the man who had laughed first. I certainly didn't expect that. The girl has guts, his wife commented. When they were alone, Nathaniel looked at Samantha with genuine admiration. Where did you learn to do that? Do what? She asked, feigning innocence, destroying someone with politeness and humor. You were brilliant, Samantha smiled. I learned it defending Julie on the playground at school. Mean mothers are training for anything. Nathaniel laughed, realizing he had completely underestimated the woman beside him. Samantha wasn't just authentic and funny. She was smart, brave, and capable of holding her own in any, even the most hostile territory. And that appealed to him far more than he was prepared to admit. It was almost midnight when Nathaniel and Samantha left the Museum of Modern Art. The event had gone on longer than planned, mainly because Samantha had become something of an instant celebrity after her confrontation with Victoria. Several people approached to chat, curious about the woman who had managed to leave Victoria Lane speechless. You were the talk of the night, Nathaniel commented as they walked toward the car. Half the people asked me where I found you. And what did you say? Samantha asked, adjusting the scarf she'd borrowed from the event organizer. That you found me, he replied, opening the passenger door for her. Technically, that's true, Samantha laughed. Drenching you in champagne, how romantic. The best relationships start with disasters, Nathaniel said, starting the car. They were pulling out of the parking lot when Samantha saw something that made her stop laughing immediately. Nathaniel, stop the car. What? He looked around, confused. Over there, on the sidewalk. Samantha pointed to a hunched figure near a park bench. That lady is feeling sick. Nathaniel looked and saw an elderly woman, probably in her 70s, sitting on the bench with her head in her hands. Even from a distance, he could tell something was wrong. Samantha, it's almost midnight. It could be dangerous. She needs help, Samantha said, already opening the car door. I'm not going to leave an elderly woman alone on the street feeling bad. Samantha, wait. Nathaniel tried to protest, but she had already gotten out of the car. He sighed, parked quickly, and followed her. Samantha was already kneeling beside the woman, speaking in a low, soothing voice. Hello, ma'am. My name is Samantha. Are you feeling okay? The woman raised her head. She was pale, with beads of sweat on her forehead, and her hands were visibly shaking. I think I have a heart problem, he said weakly. Chest pain, shortness of breath. I ran out of medicine today, and I couldn't get to the pharmacy. Nathaniel approached, concerned. Ma'am, we need to get you to the hospital. I don't have money for the hospital, the woman murmured. I've already spent it all on this month's medicine. Samantha looked at Nathaniel, who was already taking his cell phone out of his pocket. Don't worry about money, Nathaniel said, dialing. I'll call an ambulance. No, please, the lady protested weakly. An ambulance is too expensive. Ma'am, what's your name? Samantha asked softly. Eleanor Martinez. Eleanor, look at me. Samantha took her hands. My friend here is very rich and very stubborn. If he says he'll pay, he will. And do you know why? Eleanor shook her head weakly. Because he has a good heart hidden under that expensive suit, Samantha smiled. Besides, hospitals give free dessert to anyone who smiles. It's a secret rule, they don't tell anyone. Eleanor managed a weak smile. Free dessert? You bet, Samantha nodded solemnly. Jell-O, pudding, sometimes even ice cream, but only for patients who arrive smiling. Nathaniel, who was speaking to the emergency room operator, stopped to look at Samantha in disbelief. She was comforting a woman with a heart condition with jokes about hospital dessert. "The ambulance will take 20 minutes, Nathaniel announced, putting away his phone. "I think we'd better take her straight away." "I don't want to be a bother," Eleanor protested. "Miss Eleanor," Samantha said, helping her to her feet. "The only thing that's going to give me trouble is knowing that I left you here feeling unwell. Now, let's go. I'm curious to see if that dessert story is true." Nathaniel gently picked up Eleanor, surprising himself with how naturally it felt. She was lighter than he'd expected, and he suddenly understood why Samantha hadn't hesitated to help. "You're very strong," Eleanor commented, relaxing in his arms. "And very elegant," Samantha added, walking beside them. "Miss Eleanor, do you have children?" "3 children, but they all live far away," Eleanor sighed. "New York has become too expensive for them." "So today you gained 2 temporary children," Samantha declared. "The elegant penguin here, and I will take care of you until you feel better." "Elegant penguin?" Eleanor laughed weakly. "That's what I call him," Samantha whispered conspiratorially. "Always in a suit, always serious, but deep down he's a sweetheart." Nathaniel sighed, but couldn't help but smile. On the way to the car, Samantha kept Eleanor distracted with conversation about cake recipes, childhood stories, and theories about why doctors always wear cold stethoscopes. "It's to see if the patient still has reflexes," Samantha explained. "If you jump when they put that cold thing on your chest, it's a sign that you're alive and reactive." "That makes sense," Eleanor agreed, looking more animated. "Samantha," Nathaniel murmured, "that's not true." "Are you sure?" she asked, blinking innocently. "I bet you've never asked a doctor." At the hospital, Eleanor was immediately seen by the medical staff. Nathaniel handled all the paperwork and payments while Samantha stayed in the waiting room, promising Eleanor she would be there when she left. "You don't have to stay," Nathaniel said, sitting beside her in the uncomfortable emergency room chairs. "Of course I do," Samantha retorted. "I promised we'd take care of her, and besides, I still haven't figured out if the dessert story is true." 2 hours later, the doctor came out with good news. Eleanor had had a hypertensive crisis but was stable. She would require regular medication and monitoring, but there was no permanent damage. "Can I see her?" Samantha asked. "Of course. She's asking about you." Eleanor sat up in the hospital bed, looking much better. There was color in her cheeks again, and she was smiling. "My guardian angels," he said when he saw them enter. "How are you feeling?" Nathaniel asked. "Much better. And I found out you were right about dessert," Eleanor said to Samantha. "The nurse brought chocolate pudding. She said it was for special patients who arrive with loving companions." Samantha looked at Nathaniel with a triumphant smile. "I told you there was free dessert." "That was lucky," Nathaniel muttered. "Or maybe the best things happen when you act from the heart," Samantha retorted. The doctor explained that Eleanor would need to be kept under observation until morning, and that they had contacted one of her sons who would be coming from Boston to pick her up. "I don't know how to thank you," Eleanor said, holding their hands. "You saved me." "We just did what any decent person would do," Samantha said. "Not every decent person would have stopped," Eleanor observed wisely. "You make a good couple. You look out for each other and for others, too." In the car on the way home, Nathaniel was quiet, thoughtful. "Are you okay?" Samantha asked. "I'm thinking," he replied. "When you saw Eleanor on the street, I thought of safety, of time, of convenience. You only thought of helping. And what's the problem with that?" "It's okay," Nathaniel said slowly. "It's just, I don't know when I stopped acting on humanitarian instinct, when I started calculating everything." Samantha watched him drive, noticing the tension in his shoulders. "Maybe you just forgot that you still have that person inside you, the same one who carried Julie to the hospital without a second thought." "Maybe," he murmured. "Nathaniel? Trying? Thank you for today, for stopping the car, for carrying Eleanor, for paying for everything without question. You were incredible." Nathaniel glanced at her and smiled. "Thank you for reminding me of who I used to be." When they arrived at Samantha's apartment, she hesitated before getting out of the car. "By the way," he said, opening the door, "Eleanor was right about one thing." "What?" "We really take good care of each other." And with that, she walked into the building, leaving Nathaniel alone in the car, realizing that she was smiling more lately than she had in years. The following Monday, Samantha was at JFK Airport, nervously glancing at the flight board while clutching a small suitcase borrowed from her neighbor. Nathaniel had explained that they had a business meeting to attend in Boston, Something about impressing investors with their romantic stability. I've never flown, he admitted as Nathaniel approached with coffee for them both. Really? He looked genuinely surprised. Food deliveries don't require much air travel, she joked, accepting the coffee. Julie's more excited than I am. She said I'll get to see the clouds in person. Nathaniel smiled. And how is she dealing with your absence? Mrs. Rodriguez will take care of her. They'll make cookies and watch cartoons. They'll probably have more fun without me. The loudspeaker announcement interrupted them. Flight 347 to Boston canceled due to severe weather conditions. No way, Nathaniel muttered, checking his phone. Snowstorm. All flights to Boston canceled until tomorrow. Samantha looked out the window and saw the first flakes beginning to fall. At least Julie will be happy. She loves snow. The meeting is tomorrow morning, Nathaniel said, calculating. We'll have to drive. I know an inn along the way where we can spend the night. 3 hours later, they were on the road watching the snow fall ever heavier. The inn Nathaniel had chosen was small and cozy, with a roaring fireplace and rustic decor reminiscent of a grandmother's house. We only have one room available, the receptionist apologized. The storm brought a lot of unexpected travelers. Samantha and Nathaniel looked at each other, embarrassed. Does the room have 2 beds? Nathaniel asked. A king-size bed. But the sofa is very comfortable, the woman smiled. And the fireplace works perfectly. In the bedroom, Samantha immediately placed her suitcase on the sofa. I'll stay here. You pay the bills, you get the bed. Samantha, I'm not letting you sleep on the couch. And I'm not sleeping in the same bed as you. She retorted, no matter how harmlessly elegant a penguin you are. Nathaniel was about to argue when Samantha's phone rang. It was Julie on a video call. Mommy, it's snowing here too. Julie appeared on the screen, excited. Mrs. Rodriguez says you're stuck in the snow with Uncle Penguin. Hi, love, Samantha smiled, sitting on the edge of the bed. I'm fine. Uncle Penguin has taken care of me. Hi, Julie, Nathaniel waved, sitting down next to Samantha to appear on screen. Are you guys in a hotel? Julie asked curiously. At an inn? Samantha explained. Because of the snow. How fun. Julie clapped her hands. You can play games. Mrs. Rodriguez taught us a new game. 20 questions. 20 questions? Nathaniel asked. It's like this. One person thinks of something and the other asks 20 questions to guess it, Julie explained excitedly. You two should play. Mrs. Rodriguez said it's good for getting to know people. Samantha laughed. Julie, I don't think Uncle Penguin is much of a gamer. I do. Nathaniel protested, surprising himself. It sounds interesting. Really? Samantha looked at him in surprise. Mrs. Rodriguez? They're going to play. Julie shouted to someone off screen. Mommy, you have to find out what his favorite food is. After saying goodbye to Julie, they were alone in the room, with the snow falling heavily outside and the fireplace crackling cozily. So, Nathaniel said, taking off his jacket and sitting in the armchair near the fireplace. 20 questions. Do you want to find out my favorite food? Okay. Samantha accepted the challenge. Sitting on the sofa across from him. Is it sweet? No. Is it salty? Yes. Is it expensive? Nathaniel hesitated. It depends on where you buy it. That counts as yes, Samantha decided. Do you eat with a fork? Sometimes. Vague answer, she protested. Is it pizza? No, and that was your 5th question. Hot dog? Hamburger? It's getting hot, Nathaniel smiled. Cheeseburger? Very hot. McDonald's double bacon cheeseburger? Samantha shouted. Nathaniel laughed, genuinely surprised at himself. How did you guess? Seriously, Samantha gasped. The millionaire CEO loves fast food? I love it, he admitted, sounding almost embarrassed. Especially at 2 in the morning when I'm working late. There's a 24-hour delivery franchise near the office. That's humanly normal, Samantha said, smiling. Your turn. Discover my greatest fear. The questions continued, interspersed with laughter and unexpected revelations. Nathaniel discovered that Samantha was afraid of elevators, which is why she always took the stairs, that she dreamed of being an art teacher, and that she once tried to cut her own hair and ended up bald on one side. Samantha discovered that Nathaniel played the piano in secret, that he had cried watching a Disney movie with his niece, and that his biggest insecurity was not knowing if people liked him for who he was or for what he had. That's sad, Samantha said softly. It's realistic, Nathaniel corrected. What's all that money for if it makes you question whether people are genuine? Good question, he murmured. Around 10 o'clock at night, Nathaniel's stomach growled loudly. Hungry? Samantha asked. Hungry? The inn's restaurant closed at 9. Let's see if they have a guest kitchen, Samantha suggested. The kitchen was small but well-equipped. Samantha found pancake ingredients and decided to make a midnight supper. Can you cook? Nathaniel asked, sitting at the counter. Of course. I'm a single mom, she laughed. Pancakes are a Parker House specialty. Can I help? Do you know how to cook? Theoretically, Nathaniel admitted. What does theoretically mean? It means I know the basics, but I've never really practiced much. Samantha laughed. Okay, you can be my assistant. Nathaniel mixed the batter while Samantha prepared the pan. Everything was going well until he decided to flip a pancake in midair, like he'd seen in movies. The pancake flew high, spun gracefully, and landed right on the stove next to the frying pan. Nathaniel! Samantha yelled, trying to get the dough off the hot burner. The dish towel caught fire when she tried to clean up the mess. Fire! Nathaniel shouted, grabbing a glass of water. Don't splash it, Samantha shouted back, blowing on the small flames. Within seconds, the kitchen was filled with smoke, the fire alarm went off, and they were both covered in flour and giggling like teenagers. You almost burned down the inn, Samantha said, still laughing, when they finally managed to clean everything up. Me? You're the one who let the cloth catch fire. Because you threw pancakes on the stove. It was an artistic accident, Nathaniel defended, brushing flour from her hair. They stood there like that, him brushing flour from her hair, both of them still laughing when they realized how close they were. Maybe we should order pizza, Nathaniel whispered. Maybe, Samantha agreed, without moving away. That night, Nathaniel slept on the couch, insisting it was comfortable, but for the first time in years, he didn't dream of spreadsheets or meetings. He dreamed of laughter, flying pancakes, and a woman who made him feel normal. And Samantha, lying in the too-big bed, smiled in the dark, realizing she was dangerously close to forgetting it was all just pretend. Back in New York the following Thursday, Samantha was feeling strangely nostalgic. The trip had been a success. The meeting went well, and she and Nathaniel seemed to have found a comfortable rhythm in the charade of their relationship. She even began to forget it was all pretense. He was organizing Julie's school clothes when his cell phone rang. It was Margaret from the catering company. Samantha, have you seen the news today? What news? Samantha frowned. Turning on the TV, look for the local gossip channel. You'll want to sit down for this. With a bad feeling, Samantha found the channel. The host, a blonde woman with a predatory smile, was discussing high society scandals. And now, a story that's shaking Manhattan, the host said. Exclusive photos show that CEO Nathaniel Hayes' new girlfriend may not be as innocent as she seems. The screen showed a photo of Samantha entering an expensive store, followed by another of her leaving with several bags. Then, an image of her in a luxurious beauty salon. Sources close to her reveal that Samantha Parker, from a humble background, has been spending thousands of dollars on shopping sprees since she began dating millionaire Hayes, the host continued. The question remains, true love or financial gain? Samantha felt her stomach sink. These purchases had been organized by Henry, part of the costume needed for the events. She hadn't even picked out half of the things. The phone rang again. It was a number she didn't recognize. Hello? Samantha Parker? This is the Manhattan Tribune. We'd like to ask you a few questions about your relationship with Nathaniel Hayes. She hung up immediately, but the phone rang again. And again. Mommy, why are people screaming down there? Julie asked from the window. Samantha looked over and saw reporters gathering in front of the building. Her heart raced. Julie, put on your coat, we're going out the back door. But it was too late. As they left the building, camera flashes exploded. Reporters shouted questions. Samantha, is it true you're using Nathaniel Hayes? How much money did he spend on you? How does it feel to be called a gold digger? Samantha picked up Julie and ran, shielding her daughter's face from the cameras. They managed to escape in a taxi, but Julie was scared and confused. Mom, why were those people yelling at us? It's complicated, love, Samantha said, trying to remain calm. At Mrs. Rodriguez's apartment, where they had taken refuge, Samantha tried to call Nathaniel, but it went straight to voicemail. She tried 3 more times without success. Finally, 2 hours later, he returned the call. Samantha, I saw the news. His voice was tense. We need to talk. Nathaniel, those photos are of purchases your father organized. I didn't even choose those things, you know that. I know, he said, but there was something strange in his voice. But we need to think about how this affects the deal. The deal. The words hurt more than Samantha expected. Of course. The deal. My father is furious. He says this could damage our corporate image. Maybe we should take a break. A while, she repeated, feeling something break in her chest. Just until the situation calms down. You understand, right? Samantha understood perfectly. At the first sign of trouble, when public opinion turned against her, Nathaniel was backing down, protecting his reputation, as she should have expected from the start. I understand, he said, his voice as firm as he could manage. No problem. Samantha. Bye, Nathaniel. She hung up and stared at the phone, feeling stupid for having started to believe this was real. Is Mom sad? Julie appeared beside her, her eyes worried. A little, Samantha admitted. Because of Uncle Penguin? Because of work, Samantha said, trying to simplify. Did you fight with him? Not exactly. He decided it's best if we don't be friends for a while. Julie frowned, processing the information with the straightforward logic of children. That's just evil penguin stuff, he declared. True friends don't abandon you when things get tough. Sometimes adults do complicated things for complicated reasons, Samantha explained. Stupid reasons, Julie corrected. I'm going to call him and tell him he's an evil penguin who made my mommy cry. Julie, no, Samantha said quickly. We're not going to call him. Why not? Because sometimes it's better to let people get on with their lives. In the following days, Samantha completely avoided the news and social media. She returned to her normal delivery routine, but discovered that several customers had canceled orders. Apparently, being famous for the wrong reasons was worse than being anonymous. Victoria had gotten what she wanted. The photos, clearly taken by a professional photographer at carefully orchestrated moments, created the perfect narrative. A poor girl taking advantage of a rich man. How are you dealing with all this? Mrs. Rodriguez asked one afternoon as Julie played in her apartment. One day at a time, Samantha sighed. At least now I know where I stand in his life. And where is that? Nowhere. It was all a lie. But the words rang hollow. Because the truth was, somewhere during those weeks it had stopped being a lie to her. The laughter in the inn's kitchen, the way he carried Eleanor, the way he looked at Julie with genuine affection. None of it felt fake. Meanwhile, at the Hayes Enterprises office, Nathaniel was having the worst week of his life. He tried to focus on work, but he constantly found himself remembering moments with Samantha, the way she laughed when he told absurd stories, how she shielded Julie from the cameras, how she turned a pancake fire into one of the best nights he'd ever had. You did the right thing, Henry said during a meeting. Public relations require crisis management. She'll understand. But Nathaniel wasn't sure he understood. The more he thought about the phone call, the more he realized he had sounded cold, calculating. Exactly what Victoria had always accused him of being. Dad, what if we're wrong? He asked one Friday afternoon. Wrong about what? What if Samantha really cared? What if it wasn't about money? Henry sighed. Nathaniel, you've known this woman for a few weeks. Don't mistake gratitude for love. But Nathaniel remembered Samantha's face when he'd suggested taking a break. The pain she'd tried to hide, the way her voice had changed when he'd mentioned the deal. She didn't seem like a gold-digging woman. She seemed like a woman who had been hurt by someone she trusted. I need to talk to her, he decided, grabbing his car keys. Nathaniel, don't complicate things. No, Dad. I think I've made it complicated enough. When he arrived at Samantha's apartment, the building was empty of reporters, but she didn't answer the intercom. He went upstairs and knocked on the door. Samantha? It's me. Nathaniel. Silence. Please, we need to talk. I think I made a terrible mistake. The door opened slightly, but it was Julie who appeared, a serious expression on her little face. Mommy doesn't want to talk to evil penguins, he declared. Julie, where is your mother? Working. Always working. Because evil penguins made her sad, and now she has to work even harder. The innocent accusation hurt more than any corporate criticism. Julie, can you tell your mother that I'm sorry? Only if you promise to stop being mean. I promise, Nathaniel said solemnly. Julie studied him for a moment, then nodded and closed the door. Nathaniel stood in the hallway, realizing he'd lost much more than a fake girlfriend. He'd lost the woman who made him laugh, who reminded him of who he really was, and who, somehow inexplicably, had become the most real part of his life. 2 weeks after the media debacle, Samantha was serving canapes at another high society event. This time it was a charity auction at the Grand Hotel Plaza, and she had gotten the job through a different agency, using her mother's maiden name to avoid recognition. The dining room was packed with New York's elite. Samantha kept her head down, serving discreetly and trying to become invisible. She had learned the art of invisibility over the past 2 weeks. It was surprising how people didn't notice waitresses when they were determined not to see them. "More champagne, please," an elegant woman asked, without even looking at Samantha. "Of course, ma'am," Samantha murmured, refilling her glass. The auction host, a pompous man in a white tuxedo, was on stage announcing the next item. "And now, ladies and gentlemen, we have a truly special piece. A vintage jewelry set from the Astor family's private collection." Samantha was heading to the kitchen for more drinks when she heard a commotion at the entrance to the dining room. Voices whispered, heads turned. She glanced discreetly and felt her heart stop. Nathaniel Hayes had just entered the room. He looked different. His suit was impeccable as always, but there was something in his posture, an almost desperate determination she'd never seen before. His eyes roamed the room as if searching for someone in particular. Samantha hid behind a column, praying he wouldn't see her. She wasn't prepared to face him, especially not here at work, where she needed to maintain her professional composure. "The auction continues with this magnificent pearl necklace," the presenter continued, oblivious to the growing excitement among the guests. But Nathaniel wasn't paying attention to the auction. His eyes finally found Samantha behind the column, and the relief on his face was almost palpable. He started toward her, but Samantha panicked. She turned quickly and headed for the kitchen, hoping to escape before he reached her. "Samantha!" His voice echoed through the hall. The presenter stopped mid-sentence. Conversations ceased. 500 heads turned to see what was happening. Samantha froze in the middle of the room, holding a tray of empty glasses, feeling all eyes on her. She wanted the floor to open up and swallow her. "Excuse me," Nathaniel said, addressing the host on stage. "I need to make an announcement." "Sir, this is not the right time," the presenter protested. "It's the perfect moment," Nathaniel retorted, stepping onto the stage unceremoniously. The crowd murmured in confusion. Samantha stood frozen, unable to believe what was happening. Nathaniel took the microphone, took a deep breath, and looked directly at her. "A few weeks ago, I met a woman," his voice echoed through the room. "She poured champagne on me, called me a classy penguin, and completely changed my life." A low chuckle rose from the audience. Samantha felt her cheeks heat up. "Nathaniel, what are you doing?" she whispered, but he was too far away to hear. "This woman taught me things I'd forgotten." Nathaniel continued, his voice gaining strength. "She taught me that helping a stranger on the street is more important than arriving on time for a meeting. That laughing until you can't breathe is worth more than any $1 million contract. That courage isn't about closing difficult deals. It's about raising a daughter alone and still maintaining faith in humanity." Samantha felt tears well up in her eyes. The people around her began to realize who the speaker was and moved away slightly, forming a circle around her. "The last few days with her were the happiest days of my life," Nathaniel said, his voice trembling with emotion. "And I ruined it all because I was afraid. Afraid it was too good to be true. Afraid to trust my heart instead of my head." Victoria Lane, who was present at the event, was visibly furious at the back of the room, whispering something urgent to a friend. "Samantha Parker," Nathaniel said, stepping down from the stage and walking toward her. "I ask your forgiveness. Forgiveness for doubting you when I should have trusted you. Forgiveness for choosing my reputation over your feelings. Forgiveness for being exactly the kind of cold, calculating man you deserve to avoid." He stopped in front of her, his hands shaking slightly. "You taught me that life isn't a spreadsheet full of calculations and strategies. Life is improvisation. It's chaos. It's spilling champagne and laughing at the mess. And I want to improvise with you forever." Samantha dropped the tray, which shattered on the floor with a crash that echoed through the silent hall. "Nathaniel," she whispered. "I love you," he said, falling to his knees in the middle of the ballroom. "I really love you. It's not a pretense. It's not a deal. It's not a strategy. It's real. It's terrifying. It's the most genuine thing I've ever felt in my life." He took a small velvet box from his pocket. "Samantha Parker, will you marry me? Do you want to start a real family with me and Julie? Do you want to teach me how to be human every day for the rest of our lives?" The room was completely silent. Even the waiters had stopped working to watch the scene. Samantha looked at the man kneeling before her, the millionaire CEO who had given up all pride and control to come out publicly. Tears streamed freely down her face. "You're an idiot," he said finally, his voice breaking. Nathaniel blinked, clearly not expecting that answer. "A beautiful, brave, and completely crazy idiot," she continued, smiling through her tears. "And I love you too, my elegant penguin." The hall erupted in applause. People shouted, whistled, some even cried. "Is that a yes?" Nathaniel asked, still kneeling. "It's a yes," Samantha confirmed, pulling him up. "I'll be the happiest wife in the world by your side." Nathaniel scooped her up in his arms and spun her around, kissing her as the crowd cheered even louder. When they finally broke apart, they were both laughing and crying at the same time. "Julie will be overjoyed," Samantha said. "She already knows," Nathaniel confessed. "I asked her blessing first. She said it was about time, and that I could stop being an evil penguin now." "And what will your father say?" "Which was the best investment of my life," Nathaniel smiled. "And for once, he'll be right." The auction host, completely lost, tried to resume the event. "Well, that was unexpected. Let's get back to the auction." "Actually," Nathaniel said, taking the microphone again, "I'd like to make the first bid. $50,000 for everything being auctioned today." The crowd gasped. "For charity, of course," he continued. "In the name of the woman who taught me that true wealth has nothing to do with money." And with that, Nathaniel took Samantha by the hand, and they left the room under a shower of flower petals that someone had started throwing, leaving behind a party that would definitely go down in New York gossip history. 3 months later, in the heart of Central Park, a wedding ceremony was taking place that definitely did not follow the traditional protocol of New York high society. The altar had been set up near the Bethesda fountain, decorated with simple, elegant flowers. Gold chairs were arranged in a semicircle for the 300 guests. An eclectic mix of executives in expensive suits, food delivery drivers in their finery, Samantha's neighborhood neighbors, and curious socialites who wouldn't miss this event for the world. "I've never seen anything like it," murmured Margaret, the catering supervisor, eyeing the homemade hot dog stand that had been set up next to the Dom Perignon champagne table. "That's the idea," smiled Mrs. Rodriguez, elegant in a navy blue dress Samantha had insisted on buying for her. Samantha wanted everyone to feel at home. Across the room, a vintage ice cream cart played cheerful music, while children ran around dressed in their best clothes, some holding heart-shaped balloons. "Dad, are you sure this is right?" Nathaniel asked nervously, adjusting his tie for the 10th time. He looked impeccable in a charcoal gray tuxedo, but his anxiety was evident. "More right than anything you've ever done," Henry replied, surprisingly relaxed for someone who was always concerned with appearances. "And Nathaniel, stop fiddling with your tie. You look perfect." The music changed, signaling the beginning of the ceremony. Guests rose as Julie appeared at the head of the aisle, beautiful in a pale pink dress, tossing flower petals with exaggerated enthusiasm. "Don't skimp on the petals," she shouted to the other bridesmaids, making the audience laugh. Behind her, Samantha appeared on the arm of her stepfather, a simple man who had raised her after her parents' deaths. Her dress was simple but stunning, white satin with delicate lace details, nothing extravagant, but perfectly her. Nathaniel felt the air leave his lungs when he saw her. After months together, she still took his breath away. "Can you breathe, son?" Henry whispered, amused. "I think so," Nathaniel murmured, never taking his eyes off Samantha. The ceremony was conducted by a judge who was a friend of the Hayes family, who had agreed to maintain the relaxed tone Samantha wanted. "We're here today to celebrate something that started with spilled champagne and turned into true love." The judge began, drawing laughter from the audience. During the vows, Nathaniel was the first. "Samantha, you taught me that the best moments in life aren't in the plans we make, but in the accidents that happen. You taught me to laugh at myself, to stop to help strangers, and that family isn't about DNA or social status. It's about choosing to be there for someone every day." Her voice trembled slightly. "I promise to make you laugh at least once a day. I promise to always stop the car when you see someone in need. And I promise our kitchen will always have pancake ingredients, even if I keep burning them." The audience laughed, and some guests wiped their eyes. Samantha wiped her own tears before beginning. "Nathaniel, you showed me that sometimes princes appear disguised as elegant penguins in expensive suits. You taught me that courage isn't about not being afraid, it's about acting even when you're terrified. I promise to always spill my guts to you when life gets too serious. I promise to teach you the Spanish curse words I learned from Mrs. Rodriguez, and I promise our home will always be filled with laughter, even when everything seems impossible. When it came time for the rings, Nathaniel was so nervous that he picked up the wrong ring and tried to put it on his own finger. "Honey, the ring is for me," Samantha whispered, laughing. "I knew it," he murmured back, blushing. "I was testing to see if you were paying attention." "Of course I was." She smiled. Finally, when the judge declared them husband and wife, Nathaniel kissed Samantha under a shower of petals thrown enthusiastically by Julie and deafening applause. During the reception, as guests danced to an eclectic mix of soft jazz and children's songs for Julie, Nathaniel picked up his new stepdaughter. "Julie, now I'm going to have a real daddy," she cried, beaming with happiness. "And I'm going to have the most amazing daughter in the world," Nathaniel replied, holding her tenderly. "Julie, I promise to be the best daddy in the world to you and the best husband to your mommy. I promise that nothing and no one will ever separate us again." "Not even a wicked witch?" Julie asked, looking over to where Victoria was watching from afar, clearly uncomfortable with the general merriment. "Nor an evil witch," Nathaniel confirmed solemnly. During the speeches, Henry stood up with a glass of champagne. "My son has always been stubborn," he began, drawing laughter, but this time his stubbornness led him to the right person. "Samantha, thank you for teaching my son that there are more important things than spreadsheets and meetings." Nathaniel stood up too, putting his arm around his father's shoulders. "Dad, I should thank you. If it weren't for your crazy plan to hire a fake girlfriend, I would never have found the love of my life." "It was my best investment," Henry smiled. "And I've made a lot of good investments in my life." The party continued late into the night, with executives eating hot dogs, socialites dancing to children's music, and Julie teaching some important guests how to play hopscotch. When it was finally time to leave, Nathaniel carried Samantha to the car, following tradition, while Julie threw rice and shouted marriage advice she'd learned from Disney movies. "You'll live happily ever after," she shouted. "And don't forget to eat lots of cake." In the car, Samantha snuggled into Nathaniel's side. "So, husband, how are you feeling?" "Like the luckiest man in the world," he replied, kissing her softly. "And you, wife?" As if my real life had finally begun. And as they drove through the New York night, leaving behind a party that would be talked about for months in society, the three had finally found what they had been searching for without knowing it. A real family, built on love, laughter, and the certainty that the best plans are those we never plan. What did you think of Samantha and Nathaniel's story? Leave your opinion in the comments. Rate this story from 0 to 10. What score would you give it? Subscribe to the channel and activate the bell to follow all our stories and enjoy more exciting stories by clicking here on the final screen.